I wanna celebrate this life forever. Come on. I'm living that dream. We get back country. I wanna celebrate this life forever. Yeah. I'm living that dream. Expediting the process of we're coming, unifying in alignment with our greatness. Ages lay dormant, has been awakened, and this has been awakened, and this dispensation will be repositioned from the lion, being human, the lion, being human, my lineage, God listens, is different, God listens, these prayers different, my people are running, airs different, speaking airs different, speaking in the air, up in the air, with us, speaking the weirdness, you can never deny the fact, my possession, we tired of that, focus on buying black, slack down the circuit, ain't no buying that building, race, where you find us, satisfied until all of mine, living coming before you think, before you redefine black luxury, yeah. I promise this life, break this life forever. I'm living it, not dreaming it, we getting it, back country. I wanna celebrate this life forever.
What's up, everybody? What's up?
What's going on? Hi, Sedan. Hi, Pierre.
How you doing, Tiff?
Hey, Miss Tiff.
How y'all doing?
Doing all right.
Say Miss Tiff.
Great.
I feel so old.
Yeah.
y'all my brothers. I'm y'all sisters. Say Tiff.
Okay, big sis.
All right.
Got you.
All right, Tiff.
I love y'all.
We love you too.
Oh my God, the snow today.
Tell me about it. It came out of nowhere too.
Out of nowhere. I feel
Yeah.
like,
So
where are we at? Like, it should be ready to the spring, summertime.
Hello,
Wisconsin.
Hello, Wisconsin. All right.
Like we're gonna be
So
flooding
really.
in April,
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
mid-April. Well, I mean, we got a lot to talk about today,
Yes.
especially with the verdict of Derek Chauvin.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited.
You know,
Man, sit your dumb ass down.
yeah, they supposed to say that to him in the background. But yeah, like
Did dude look weird?
he did. It was the face that you give when your white privilege card is declined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that reptilian.
Yeah.
If I'll be damned was a person,
Yeah.
yeah, it was over for him. But yeah, the verdict, most definitely guilty.
And I think we all had a mixed ball of emotions. My spirit was telling me all day yesterday, guilty. But I didn't know I was going to get guilty on first count, guilty on second count, guilty on third count. But man, it was just a good feeling.
It was, especially to see those words go across the screen. It was just like, yeah. Even afterwards, it just solidified everything. Like, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. He deserved it.
Pierre, what did you feel?
I felt good. I mean, it was a small victory, but it was a victory. You know what I mean? Nevertheless. So we just keep fighting.
Definitely,
You know what I mean?
definitely.
Keep fighting.
Well, we definitely got some freedom fighters
Oh yeah.
in the building with us today. Y'all just get tuned in for a great discussion. People who have been watching for a long time. But y'all go ahead and kick it off and let them know who we got.
I mean, Jamal, you very known. You know what I'm saying? You ain't no stranger to the streets, the community, the world. I mean, come on, man. You done been places.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's
Yes,
Jamal Smith, y'all. You want to go ahead and tell the people just a little brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Jamal Smith. Appreciate the invitation. I'm definitely honored to be here.
Welcome.
Violence Prevention Manager for the City of Milwaukee Health Department Office of Violence Prevention. Work centered around public policy advocacy, community engagement for violence prevention strategies, as well as the implementation of the Blueprint for Peace, which was Milwaukee's first comprehensive strategic plan around violence prevention, and it was community driven.
That's what's up.
Beautiful thing about that is that this is not a bureaucratic approach, right? This is not government focus of saying, as the city government, we're telling people that have been impacted by violence the most what we think is best for you in terms of prevention.
Yeah.
Instead of us saying, what do you think should be some of the strategies and how can we help you? Right. That was the approach to this. And so now to take this foundational work that is becoming like a national practice, we have other cities that are trying to replicate that and create their own blueprints.
Yeah.
So that there be that whole idea of a violence from a public health model. But then also, it's not just that we use that from the, governmental lens, but how do we take that and we combine with what grassroots organizations, grass tops organizations, right? On ground work as well as work in the policy and on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Like there has to be that entire spectrum of work that is happening for advocacy to really take hold across the board.
Awesome.
Man,
Y'all make
that's-
sure y'all tune in, y'all. Y'all share this. Welcome to Revolution Ready. We're live. Next, we have just a wonderful sister queen, all things. And I'm going to let her tell all things about herself. But y'all give a hand clap. Y'all welcome to Revolution Ready. Yeah, okay.
Hey, everybody out there in live land. My name is Camila Ahmed. I am a member of the People's Revolutions. I'm a co-founder of Black Women's Emancipation, BWE movement and group. I help organize within the community of Milwaukee. I have been out now for 327 days, organizing protests, showing up to protests, showing up to actions with the People's Revolution. The Black Women's Emancipation Group was a group that myself and other queens, Black women, Black trans women, Black non-binary women, and women presenting non-binary people created this group to be all inclusive, for all of us to feel like we had a voice within the movement. Last year, our first organizing event was on Juneteenth Day. And we just got together and celebrated the existence of us, and also brought attention to the protection that has been lacking for Black women within the community. So it's a cause that is very near and dear to my heart, as well as the People's Revolution is very near and dear to my heart as well.
Awesome. Love on them, people. Welcome, Jamal, Camila, to Revolution Ready, y'all. So we're just gonna get right into this. I definitely want to ask y'all before we get into the debriefing, just tell us what even persuaded you both to get into the work that each of you are doing, because you're doing the same thing, just in different avenues. But just talk briefly about, what inspired you, how are you driven each day to be in the work that you're doing?
Okay. Well, for the better part of the past 10 years, I have been one of those keyboard gangster peoples. Like I will rip somebody to shreds on Facebook for being racist or homophobic or transphobic. Like that was like where I found my peace, honestly, is arguing and telling people about themselves in regards to Black people and our liberation. I spent a lot of time, just being on the internet and seeing things happen to our people and being upset about it. Last year, as I watched George Floyd be murdered on video like many others, I could not stay at home no more. I felt like I absolutely need to get out here in these streets. I've always been an advocate for my people in my heart and in my mind, but I felt like it's time for me to put that work into action. I have 2 young children. I have a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old son. And before, when I saw the Milwaukee uprising in 2016 for Seville, ironically, I was working for that beauty supply.
Wow.
At that time.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. I didn't care. F that job. But ironically, I was working for that beauty supply, and I remember working there and like people coming in and being like, they burnt y'all store down, and me being like, well, it's just a building. Like somebody died. Like this was wrong. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
It never struck me that people couldn't see past that. And so last year, when people started protesting and marching for George Floyd, my children are older now. My son knows what's going on, especially my eldest son. He's 10 years old. He knows what's happening. And I thought to myself, what type of mother and example would I be setting for my son if he saw that his mother has the capability to act and fight for change, and she didn't. And that's not the story that I want for my children. I want my kids to be able to say that I am proud of my mother, and my mother fought for us and everyone else and never gave up on that.
Respect.
And so that's really what drew me to get out here and continue. And then I keep having all these small victories on the way. And so that just reaffirms my reasoning. Like, I can't stop now.
Yeah. Respect.
Most definitely.
For me, it started, as a kid. I don't know if you all remember the bookstore Reader's Choice. Used to be on MLK. My father would take me there every Saturday, and we would get into all kind of literature, whether it was Sonia Sanchez, James Baldwin, Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton. And then we would go to Mr. Perkins' restaurant right down the street and have breakfast and talk about it.
Love
right.
Perkins.
That was my introduction to social movements and social change. And so when I ended up going to Alabama State University, which is historically Black College University, HBCU, stand up. And I stood on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is the bridge that connects Selma to Montgomery. And for those who may know the history of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, that's where Bloody Sunday happened, when voters were attacked by law enforcement and community residents for fighting for voting rights, right? But there was like a surreal feeling standing on that bridge. It's almost like you could still feel the spirits of those who fought, who bled, and some who died on that bridge just for the right for representation, right? So it was like, it became obligatory at that point. Like, I'm obligated to go back home and serve. So it started then. So when I got home, it started with teaching. And I was teaching at a local high school, a choice high school, because it really didn't know like all the differences of various between choice, charter, and public at the time. I just saw Black kids that I wanted to help in terms of teaching. But it really exposed the systemic injustice for education in my eyes, which changed me from a classroom to advocacy work. So I think that's what pushed me more so to become involved in racial equity work, education equity work, education organizing, most around also underemployment, unemployment. I was part of the Fight for 15 movement. So
I think that's where we met.
That's where we met, was the Fight for 15 movement. So I was at Wisconsin Jobs Now at the time. So, a lot of that on ground work, which I loved, and I still do to this day, spearheaded me into now this governmental work. Because it's like now Malcolm always talked about the importance of political infiltration. So now we have an ability to get within the system to shake it up. Right. So you need all levels. And Alicia Garza talks about that in her book, Power, the Purpose of Power, that you need people inside the system, outside the system, and those to even bring acknowledgement to the fact that the system is failing. Right. So being able to be a part of the work on ground and then going into the actual political work, still that mindset, that community organizer, mobilizing, engagement, and that grassroots focus now is like, it's given me a perspective that is not robotic in form of saying, just because I'm in politics, that means I have to operate like that. So, it's for me, this is not a job. I've never looked at this as a job. Like, this is purposeful work. Kind of similar what Camilla was saying. I have a 10-year-old. I have a 12-year-old son. Right. I have to think about that because Tamir Rice was 12. That makes me nervous.
Wow.
Right. So, every time my son sees me on TV, or, if he sees me, he comes to a speaking engagement, or he sees me working, it's like, I'm not only doing it for my community, but primarily I'm doing it for him, with my family.
That's right.
And every time he sees it, like every time he does career day, I'm always his career day, which I love. But, I also want you to understand, son, this is not something I want you to look as a career, because this is life changing. This is changing situations for families in our communities. Right. So being able to be involved in this work, I would do this for free because this is just what I'm purposed to do.
Most definitely.
I do it.
Make sure y'all share this. Y'all like this, love this. Put some questions into the comment section. Let's get this conversation going.
Most definitely. I want to dive right into the work that you actually do, though.
Let's do it.
pretty sure, the violence prevention work that you do is, it's invigorating. At the end of the day, to have to come up with a plan to prevent violence is something that, a lot of common minds don't, they don't think that far.
Right.
So it's like coming up with these plans, like what strategic measures do y'all take to make sure that y'all keep the hood safe?
Well, the first thing is people have to understand what violence really is, right? Because the idea in terms of violence for many people is it's either communal or interpersonal, so physical violence. We're talking about gun violence, sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking. That's always what comes to mind. What we don't discuss enough, and something that I've been pushing a lot, and the whole office in general has been pushing, is the impact of systemic violence, right? We have to look at poverty as violence.
That's
Segregation
right.
is violence.
Yeah.
Home instability is violence. Lack of quality access to healthcare, education inequity, criminal justice disparities for Black and Brown residents. All of those are examples of systemic violence. So if you're looking at it from a prevention model, that means, and from a public health lens, that means you're looking at root causes of what leads to the conditions that happen within communities, right? So imagine, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day who lives in a neighborhood where the average median income is $150,000 a year. Well, the average median income in Milwaukee, especially for Black folks, is 32.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So imagine if a neighborhood like Metcalf Park or Sherman Park or North Division or Amani had the same average median income as Shorewood or Brookfield or Oak Creek, what would then be the climate of those neighborhoods?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a conversation we have to have, because then it's like, okay, why aren't those opportunities being afforded to residents within Metcalf Park or Sherman Park or Amani like they are in those other neighborhoods I named? Now we're talking about systemic violence. Right. So in order to truly be able to talk about it from a prevention aspect, then it's not a focus on punitive measures. Right. For so long, we have been arresting mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, and poverty. We've responded to that with criminality and incarceration until it hits those neighborhoods that I just named. Now we're talking about treatment. So how come that's not an all-encompassing conversation where treatment, rehabilitation is happening within our own neighborhoods? That's how you're dealing with prevention work.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So being able to really talk about the ways in which we're changing the experiences and the livelihood of people within the hood, within those neighborhoods, that's how you prevent violence, right? If people have stable homes, they're not concerned about wages, poverty is not an issue, child care is not an issue in terms of payment, people are cost burdened, meaning they're paying 30% of their income on housing. That shouldn't happen.
No.
Especially when your wages are low.
You can rent it on.
And your rent is insane, right? Like those are issues that are systemically enforced, especially on marginalized, disenfranchised communities. If we're not talking about that, I don't want to hear the conversations about the other things, because now you're talking about what are byproducts of the root causes that led to those, right? So if we're having conversations again about prevention, there has to be all encompassing. If that's not happening, then we're not talking about transformative violence prevention efforts.
And are we talking about just in plain speak about access? So when you give equitable access to neighborhoods, to communities, to people, then you'll see the difference in how people were able to respond and people were able to, have a thriving livelihood for not only for themselves, but for others. And they're also thinking about that. When you intentionally, place things in front of them, then people are thinking about, okay, now I see it differently.
Like I see it differently, right? So, how everybody talks about the ACEs report, right? Adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah.
Like you individualize trauma, but you don't talk about trauma enough on a community aspect until there was a framework created, the Adverse Community Experiences and Resilience framework out of Prevention Institute in Oakland. Now we're looking at the impact of communal trauma, which you have to have a conversation about racial inequity. You have to have a conversation about homophobia, transphobia, the response to the LGBTQ community, the response to women, the response to disabled, and the trauma that comes from all of those different isms and phobias that are attacking specific communities of people, right? That's community trauma. So if you're alleviating community trauma, then that's automatically trickling down to individual. It can't be just an individual basis because everybody handles trauma differently. But we know that trauma is an issue in communities, and there is a source to that trauma within those communities. You have to deal with that first.
I think this is an excellent example of why we need to end systemic racism, because everything that you have just said plays into how our people have been affected by systemic racism over time. If you have a community of people that have everything that they could ever need and want in their lives, there is no struggle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We have people in our community that are going out fighting for their lives and their livelihood every day. We have people in our community who are dealing with mental health and not even being able to assess that I'm driving 100 miles per hour down the damn street, I might kill somebody. Like these are real issues that we're having. Like we have lead in our water. A lot of our children are dealing with mental health issues because they've been growing up drinking lead. You know what I'm saying? All of this falls into why it's important for us to end systemic racism, in my opinion, because I have never seen a community like Milwaukee in my life. I've lived all over the place. And Milwaukee is the most segregated place I have ever seen in my life. I've never lived someplace where I can go a day and stay in one side of my town and never see a white person. You get what I'm saying? You go to another side of town, you never see a black person. That's not right. It shouldn't be like that. And I think in order for us to change that, there do need to be more opportunities within our community for our people, especially our young people.
Exactly.
We have a lot of young people out here. They don't have no job. They got family members that's done taking care of them. Because you know us black folks, we want to kick the kids out at 18 and be done with it. And I always say my kids gonna stay in my house until they grown. As long as they working or going to school or something, I'm not that's a different type of program in my mind, because we should be supporting our children until they get to a point where they could support themselves. And that's the problem that we seeing babies out here trying to support themselves. I was a baby trying to support myself. You know what I'm saying? At 18 on my own. So I know that feeling. And I think Milwaukee really has to focus in on breaking those barriers. Then it also starts with livable wages, like you said, and you've been out here fighting for that too. But I mean, we gotta eat.
Definitely
simple.
You can't be hungry.
Speak on it. Speak on it. Let's dive into the Black women emancipation.
Y'all want to talk about that? Let's do it. I'm ready.
Let's do that.
I got some things to say. No.
Go ahead and let people know what that's about.
Yeah, Black women's emancipation. Last summer when the protest started, I remember it was one time in particular that a man that was like leading protests, you know what I'm saying, like disrespected me. And I didn't like how that felt. I did not like how that felt, but I kept showing up because I felt it was important for me to be a part of this in this fight. But then I got together with my sisters, and a lot of them have been disrespected in different ways. And I'm like, why we just don't do our own thing? And at the time, like, it didn't seem like it would create division or it was going to cause any drama. It was literally us being like, we want people to hear us. We want people to feel our pain too. Because we out here walking, we saying these names, but man, look at all these names over here too. Like, and we ain't said nothing about them.
Exactly.
I don't want to say I'm an advocate for the trans community in particular, but I have people that I love dearly in my life who are part of the trans community. And I would be sorely mistaken if I did not stand up for them as well in all my fights that I do, because part of the fight that we're going through for our liberation, when you take the most marginalized person in the community and you make sure they have everything that they need, everyone else is fine.
That's right. That's right.
We got to start from the bottom and work our way to the top. That's why I prioritize the voices of people who are the most marginalized,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, you know, if my sister can walk down the street and feel safe and protected, and my sister can go anywhere that she wants to in this country and feel loved and protected, like that's all we need in this world. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like the Black woman is God.
Protect our Black women.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I feel like Black women, especially in the past year, Black women have definitely stepped up in the community of Milwaukee. They have really, really been out here doing the work.
That's right.
And putting their all
Vice
into
President.
it.
That's right.
Exactly. And it all comes from a place of true compassion and true caring about the people and making sure the people are good.
That's
So,
right.
you know, we created that platform of BWE, and we encourage people to be inclusive of all Black people. But we want it to be known that these are Black people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And we are all in the same fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that was important for us just to have that moment, to have our voices heard. The community came out and supported us. So far, we've done, I think, 3 events.
Someone's definitely just had one, right?
So yeah, that BWE did assist with the Black Trans Visibility Week. They did a protest for that, and we did help organize with that. And so, you know I get flack sometimes from our community because people are like, well, you know, that don't have nothing to do with Black people fighting for justice and but I feel like we need to start having serious conversations within the Black community about how we treat our LGBTQ brothers and sisters amongst ourselves, because we can't get to true liberation until we all come together about it. Like, right. You don't have to be gay.
Right.
You don't have to be a person who is like, but you don't have to be disrespectful. Right. You don't have to be hateful, right. And you don't have to be violent.
Right. Do you think it's a matter of people need to be more educated and open themselves up to having an understanding about, you know, at the end of the day, this is about humanity, and protecting humanity, and no matter what it is under the lens of, at the end of the day, it's still about making sure that people are, you know,
I think that once people put the human back into humanity,
right.
Yeah.
And we realize that we are all people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and I know some of y'all are Christian people, and I was a Christian and I practiced the faith before.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the way that God told the people, like, only I can judge them. Who are you to judge them? You know what I'm saying? And I think it's unfair that, you know, we have our own opinions about people and then we just throw that hate on them for being themselves and wanting love and appreciation just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not right. And I will stand up against it for the rest of my life, just because, you know, I love Black people.
Yeah.
First and foremost. Mm-hmm. I love all Black people.
Shout out to loving Black people, y'all.
For real.
You can't clap for that. Clap for nothing else. Clap for that. Loving Black people.
Most definitely. And then I do want to dive right into this topic. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's
I can't wait no more.
Okay, let's
I'm over here biting my tongue. Like, wait a minute. Is we gonna ever say something?
It's a good thing that you brought up, Camilla, about Black women being just very instrumental in this movement.
Yes.
And segueing, because I think about, we never would have had the opportunity to see for ourselves about what happened to George Floyd. So respect to George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Had it not been for a young 17-year-old woman,
yes.
Darnella Frazier is her last name, I believe, and her courage, she's just walking on the side of the street, going to Cup Foods with her 9-year-old cousin, and their lives are immediately changed forever. Mm-hmm. And our lives are immediately changed forever. But the courage that it took, y'all can't see me, but just to stand there and record. And I saw how she testified on that witness stand. That we didn't see her face out of her own protection, but hearing
she was guilty.
hearing the trembling in her voice. You hear
She
that?
felt bad.
She felt bad, and like the onus of that being put on her, like, y'all. Like, so I'm just glad that you mentioned that about just women, how this young woman will forever have that in her mind as to how she helped change the course of how society views things. And she had a hand in what we saw yesterday. So let's dive into that.
Most definitely. And not only just that though, but George Floyd had a daughter.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's gonna be a
Right.
strong black woman that's gonna come up in the revolution.
Yes.
You know, and if it shows like, okay, you know, normally our black children, our daughters in particular, I got 4 boys, 1 girl, you know, and I honestly feel like, you know, none of my kids show me love like my daughter. You know what I mean? None of them show me that.
To Riley.
You know, my daughter Riley, none of them shows me that affection like my daughter. You know, it's just, it's a proud moment in a dad's life when you have a daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for this young woman to have to grow up without her dad, and knowing that we see the slogan, daddy changed the world.
Yeah.
You know, knowing that has to live on in her forever.
Right.
You know, we most definitely have to uplift our black women, our black children. You know, we have to stand up for our black women and protect them at all costs.
Protect. That's right.
But let's dive into this verdict though. Pierre, man. Whew, you been biting your tongue a lot, man. I know you pissed off, man. Go ahead and just give us the raw emotion of it, man.
I don't know what to say, man. It's just, like I said, I feel like it's a victory regardless. But I mean, how many times we done seen that happen and it go the opposite way?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, I was kind of just shocked overall. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say I expected him to get off.
Right.
I mean, God knows nobody wanted it to go there, but
I think
just
a lot
to-
of us did.
I mean, yeah, in a sense to say
makes sense.
we were ready to go there, but I don't mean just overall. I don't think a lot of people wanted it to, you know what I mean, to go there.
Yeah.
But just watching it, you know, I just got to thinking about all the situations and times where it went the opposite way. You know what I mean? I'm talking about not even with all these testimonies, with all these witnesses, and just cut and dry. They gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to see like, okay, finally America took the time to look,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? To really look in the eyes and the life of a person, like show what they're feeling. You know what I mean? Like, I don't agree that they wanted him to go to jail. I'm not going to say that as far as the people in the legal powers, but it changed him. I feel like it changed him in a different way. You know what I mean? Like, we can't obviously operate in that same manner anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, something has to change from now on because everyone's watching. Everyone's going to be looking for that change. What are you going to do now?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I was proud. You know what I mean? But like I said, I was shocked, but overall just proud. Like, finally.
Yeah.
America
Mimi,
stood up.
Well, I'm gonna say Mimi because everybody call her Mimi. I mean, I'm
me too, y'all. CGW2, Chocolate Goddess Warrior. Don't forget it.
Shout out.
we were together yesterday when the verdict was being announced. We were just sitting on pins and needles. So tell us about your reaction to just that whole feeling.
Oh man, I'm still in shock, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. Personally, because this summer I went to jail for the first time in my life protesting. I'm gonna be 29 on Friday. I've never been in jail. I've never been in trouble with the law. And so I have this festering hatred in my soul now for the police. Like, before it was like, I don't like the police, but now it's like, they can die. Like, you know, it's really serious.
Good with you up. Fuck them all.
Yeah, it's really serious now. Like, it's personal. It's on a personal level. So, you know, having gone through everything that I went through in the past year and the abuse that I've endured, to get to this point, to see him actually convicted, because when I walked out of my house last year, I walked out of my house for justice for George Floyd. I don't know what everybody else walked out there for. But when I went outside to protest that day, I said, oh, yeah, this motherfucker getting some justice. This gonna happen. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can curse on here, y'all.
I always say
But
you can,
it's
but
happening.
it's
Okay,
it happens.
all right.
Sometimes raw emotion is raw emotion.
But I walked out of my house like, oh, he finna get some justice this time. Because I was like, there is no way that we as a people can sit back and allow this to happen. And then when the protests continued, I was like, oh yeah, we finna get some justice.
How many days TPR been out there again?
TPR has been out protesting for 327 days.
Shout out to
y'all.
TPR.
Shout out to TPR.
They know who we are.
327 days. But it all felt worth it yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that we have gone through, it was so worth it. And it's a lot of people that like to piss in our cereal and be like, this isn't a victory. This isn't a win. Y'all didn't accomplish nothing. He's just going to jail. This is the first white police officer to be charged with murder in Minneapolis. They have a long history of police brutality and police murder, police corruption, and none of them have ever been charged.
Yeah.
Not a white one.
Yeah.
So this was a major thing. And I think history is going to look back on this and say, this is when the people were at their most powerful.
Exactly.
Because we made this happen. Had we not stood up and did what we did, I don't think he would have been charged.
Much respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was thinking about Muhammad Noir. You know, because with him, killing that white woman.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
It was like there was no, I don't even think his trial went long, if I'm not mistaken. They immediately gave him like 12 to 15 years, somewhere in there. So it was like, how is it possible? So now you're showing me even the bias internally within the policing.
Yeah.
Because he said the same thing in terms of he thought it was he feared for his life. Right.
Same thing they
always say.
Yeah.
So then now this brother says the same thing.
Right.
And that means nothing. He still goes to jail for 12 to 15 years.
It was a white
because
woman.
it was a white woman.
That's
Right. So I'm thinking of him.
Right.
Like,
Emmett Till.
gosh, I'm thinking of Emmett Till. You know what I mean? So it's like, how can you look this man's family in the eye when Derek Chauvin killed this man for everybody to see?
Come on.
Yeah.
Right. What Muhammad Noir did was just like out of reporting. We don't know what that looks like.
Correct.
We hate that it happened to whatever, but we don't know what that looks like.
Correct.
We watched for 9 minutes and 29 seconds.
We don't even know
Derek
if she
Chauvin.
complied.
We don't even know if she complied. Right.
Yeah.
We know that George Floyd did.
Mm-hmm.
So for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, we watched this man's life just be taken. Like it didn't matter at all.
Yes.
And for there to have been the verdict to say guilty on all three, it was like you said, it was like there's that small victory, right? But that's a victory in battle, but we still have a war to fight.
Yes.
We got to remember that, right? So even with me being happy about the guilty verdict, I'm interested to see what's going to happen in 8 weeks when the sentencing comes.
Yeah.
What about the other three though?
Oh, they guilty too, y'all.
You know what I
Coming
mean?
in August.
Because if he's
They're in
guilty,
August.
there has to be something that aligns them to be guilty as well.
Yeah.
Not even just by association, but them being party too.
Let
Not
me
even
tell you,
stop.
the defense is gonna say that Chauvin. They probably gonna have something set up and say that Chauvin's case shouldn't be entered in for their case. Like, y'all can't talk about Chauvin.
Whatever happens, they're gonna.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing about 97% of the police cases. You have to look at what they get tried for. When you see what they get tried for, you could probably tell they're getting off. He was probably one of the few ones that literally got tried for murder that was based on what he actually did.
Mm-hmm.
Not justification of the move, not was he in the right, did he have the ability of fear to do what he did? No. He was tried. Did you do this and did you have to do that? Oh, you didn't have to do that? Yeah, you guilty.
Yeah, they said negligence.
They said
it's not first degree.
This is also one thing that a lot of people tend to forget about this one. He had to be found guilty because this is one of the first times in history where a police crime in America went international.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the first times where the world is
Yeah.
like, "Hey, y'all tripping."
Yeah.
He had to be found guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you seen what happened when we got mad about it. Imagine what the world would have did.
Same- Same thing happened with Seville though. My brother's case went all the way to London.
Yes, it did.
You know, BBC actually came here.
Sure did.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
actually knew
Yeah.
people that friends of mine who were still living in Japan that asked me about that.
Yeah,
Like,
Seville's
are you
case went
safe?
international
I'm
as well.
like, I'm in the hood.
Yeah. So like to his point, right? The same thing with like when Walter Scott got killed,
Right.
Yes.
right? You saw on video where he's clearly running away and the officer shot him in the back. Now, how do you avoid that?
Right. Right.
So if versus, but then the other side is, but Geronimo Yanez got off in the way that he killed Philando Castile. So stuff like that is what brings up people being
That one still
nervous,
pisses me
being nervous about, even with insurmountable evidence. Yeah, but still,
But still.
yeah, you got a lot of evidence, but still.
Yeah.
So people, you would think that looking at that, clearly guilty. What are we talking about, right? But we also know that's not always a guarantee because of the way in which, see, the problem is the culture of policing.
That's right.
The history and the culture
You
of
hit it.
policing.
You
Right.
hit it.
J. Cole said something the other day I thought was so dope. When people always say, like, there are good cops out there. And he was like, he said, no, the difference is there are good people that are cops.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
He was like, good cops is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But there are good people that are cops.
That's right.
So if I know that there are good people that are cops, we're individualizing that, but we also know that they get trumped, pun intended, in a system, in a culture of policing that has been riddled with, corruption.
It took
Yeah.
13 years for that officer. What's that woman's name? I forgot her
the,
name.
The lady who recently
York?
received her pension.
13 years for her to fight for her pension
It was
because
at
she
the
reported
in
an
New Jersey.
The black sister
In New
in
Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
It was like Caroline or something like that. Yeah, the one that spoke up. But that's another thing. Like, you actually have to have whistleblower protections
Exactly.
in order for there to be, for
That's
there
why
not to
we
be any
gotta change them
retaliation.
laws.
But it was riveting what the judge said, and he connected it to George Floyd that
Mhm. We can't get justice
she
for him.
interjected while she saw her colleague, her cop colleague, being on a citizen's neck, and she wanted to do something about it, and she was fired in response to it, and the judge just basically vindicated everything and said you were in the right. You shouldn't have been fired.
Mhm.
You should have held your colleague accountable, and here's how I'm gonna repay you double back for your trouble.
Mhm.
And we're gonna not just do that for you, but we're also gonna set an example for the George Floyds of the world too, to ensure that they don't also have to go through the same.
Flip side of that, though, that argument can be used for those other three officers. Don't be
That's
surprised
true.
if the defense attorney
That's
used
true.
that.
He was trying to.
He was trying to use it even in the George Floyd trial.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
when their actual trials come up in August, don't be surprised if that's part of their argument in terms of the whistleblower
We
protection.
ready for that.
Yeah.
Huh?
We ready for that.
Gotta be.
For it.
Gotta
You
be.
know? My whole take on it was, I feel like, how do you not plead guilty for something like that?
Oh yeah.
You go home every day knowing that not only have you, taken this man's life away, but the world sees it. Your self-integrity as a person has now been diminished. You don't have that anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't think self-integrity was there when he's
No.
put his
He didn't
hands in
have
the
none.
head. You know what I mean?
He
Whatever
thought
type of
George's
cop he
life
was
didn't
before he
matter.
ran into George
I mean,
Floyd,
they kept saying,
he
"What do you
showed
want?
it.
What do you want?"
And they knew each other.
Yeah.
To sit there relaxed
yeah,
while taking somebody's life
Yes.
away
yeah. With
You know-
your hands in your pocket.
shows what type of person that you are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It shows how you view the badge and how well you feel authority will override justice. As the figure that you serve to be an officer,
Mhm.
you felt like that badge was gonna,
Protect you.
protect you.
exactly.
did.
Nobody ever saw justice until now. And yeah, I understand what you said, Pierre. It's a small victory, bro, but one giant step. You know what I'm saying? One small leap for us, is a giant leap for us.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been given not one footprint in the sand.
Nope.
You know what I mean? That they've actually acknowledged.
Mhm.
It's real.
We have always been the people that has been disposable in this country, and that's how they view us.
That's
Yeah.
real.
We shouldn't have to have a violence prevention just being honest.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to have a lot of these things that we have to, us as activists, us as community organizers, us as people that give a damn. We shouldn't have to come up with ways to keep us alive.
Facts.
As Black people, we have to have the talk with our kids.
Right.
White people will never know what that feels like.
No,
I dread the day that I have to have the talk with my son. Hopefully I do enough to where he knows how to read through the law and how to provide, reasonable doubt that he's not guilty, no further an investigation at all.
Mhm.
Hopefully he knows how to say, I'm not getting out the car, and in a way where they have to respect it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we do enough when they make it to that age that there is a change that comes
Exactly.
behind what we do.
And I wanted to go back to another point you made and make a point about that when you said it's like one giant step for Black people. People out there, if you are not a Black person, please allow Black people to celebrate this however they want to. Please. Because listen,
Similar to OJ.
I understand socialism and Marxism like everybody else, but baby, if I want to be happy about Derek Chauvin going to jail, I'm gonna do that.
Come on.
Wait. He need to do.
It don't mean
Sit your dumb ass down. Every time.
it don't mean that we feel like this is the end all be all. It don't mean that we don't understand we got more work to do. But some people are truly happy that this has happened. It is truly
It's uplifting.
It's uplifting. It is hopeful for us. And if you're not Black, you just not gonna understand that feeling to wake up and realize like we got him.
Right.
But it's easy for them to do that because they don't know what it'll feel like to be 3/5 of a man.
Come on.
Exactly.
Right.
Come on, and still fight for that.
still fight for that to this day. Like you don't know what it's like because and if people know history, it initially started out as 2/5,
There you go.
and then they did. That's why it's called a 3/5 compromise.
We got upgraded.
So the fact that
Supposedly.
we went from 40% to 60%, thanks.
Yeah.
But the fact that we couldn't even be viewed as an entire human being,
Come on.
people still have that mindset.
Yeah.
Like even as time has evolved, as technology has evolved, as information has evolved,
Yeah.
mindsets still remain the same.
That's
That's
why
right.
Derek
And we
Chauvin.
still
That's
are
why
the
Derek
dominant.
Chauvin did what he did,
That's
right?
That's,
I
and
can
that's
look
why
at
he
George
stood
Floyd.
there and look the way he
I can
looked.
look at George Floyd as subhuman, right?
Yeah.
Because me, not only just the fact that I have this badge and I have
Yeah.
qualified immunity, which is another
Right.
conversation.
A whole nother
Oh yeah, we
But
getting on that.
But the mere fact is, I know as a white man, I have authority, or I feel I have authority over this Black man because historically, that's what we have been conditioned to believe.
How powerful
And
is
then,
that? Oh
and,
my-
and then think about the fact of, I'm glad you said that, Jamal, because not only did he not think of him as a human being, but then he's thinking of him as this drug addict, somebody who is
Like he was just gonna
obviously
kill a
walking around,
crackhead.
obviously walking around with counterfeit money, so he's a criminal. So his approach to him wasn't even proper, wasn't even correct. And this is at least just saying this was a non-criminal call that you were called
Exactly.
to. You could have just said, "Hey, sir, we just called here to cut foods today to find out what's going on. Let's walk over here to the side." He didn't even treat him like that.
They
He
put him in the
was
car and took
aggressive
him
with
out though.
Yeah.
Like what was that all about in the first place?
And then he's looking at him. People judge you by your height, how tall he
His
was,
size.
his size.
That
Yeah.
was the defense's whole argument. They spent the whole day on that.
Yeah.
Talking about his size and how big he was. He had a reasonable thought of danger because he was, and the prosecution was like, listen, that's a risk.
Yeah.
But that's not a threat.
Yeah.
His size is a risk for you to assess and make your decision how to move.
That's
But
right.
it's not a complete threat to you.
That's right.
Someone being
Yeah.
big and Black
Yeah.
is not a threat.
That's all it was.
But to them, it is.
And
Why?
that's how they view
Because
us.
historically, Black folks is looked as having the superhuman strength,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So we have that at 125 pounds.
They think
Yeah.
we don't feel pain.
Like we don't feel pain,
Yeah.
right? Like there's even studies that show that doctors prescribe less painkillers for Black folks because you have a higher tolerance for pain,
And they also believe that we will abuse those
and we will
drugs.
abuse those drugs because we're
They
hyper
don't
criminal,
even give
right?
them to them. I had 2 kids. Let me tell you, I couldn't get nothing. The first time they gave me something, the second time I ain't getting nothing. Take ibuprofen.
Yeah.
So that's that argument I said earlier about systemic violence.
Exactly.
Right.
But they will offer you those psychotropic
They
drugs.
will
Oh
give you a
yeah,
psychotropic
they're gonna give you some
because they're gonna get
Zoloft.
paid off of
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the people probably want to know, what's next? Since we know this is not collectively, we shouldn't just sit on this moment and think that we could just ride this to the sunset. What is next? What should we be doing? How should we be working? Even Camilla, you're involved with TPR. Like, what is the direction that we should be telling people at this point in time? Like, how should we be motivating them and channeling them into the right direction?
I think this is both and. I think it's still what TPR is doing, right, and still hitting the streets. But I think it's also in making sure that legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is being pushed, right? Because that tackles ending qualified immunity.
Yes.
That tackles no-knock warrants. That tackles chokeholds and cartoid holds. That tackles all of the incidences that we've seen that have led to the murder of people on social media, TV, whatever. It's going after those same practices, right? But it's also going after, police that are accused of misconduct. It's more of a conversation about being more reckless, right? Because language means everything. Right?
That's right.
So
that's right.
Talking about reckless versus somebody saying that this was just, an objective reasoning. This was an objective call, right? Objective means that I was thinking for both parts. Subjective means I'm thinking with my own thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. So subjective can be reckless. What we saw with Derek Chauvin, that was reckless as hell.
Reckless.
Right. So there should be that opportunity within laws, and people need to figure out the ways in which to get involved, whether that's calling your representatives. First, we really need to make sure that we're leading civic engagement efforts so people can know exactly who their representation is.
Yeah.
Right. You need to know who your state rep is, your state senator is, but you need to know who your congressional representative is and who your congressional senator is. Right. All of those different positions have different roles.
That's right.
So it's reaching out to your representatives in Congress and saying, we need you to support this George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Tony Evers just released what is his operation?
Yeah, so it's a executive order number 111 that directs state managed law enforcement to review and update use of force policies. So meaning they have to update these things, and so that's pushing within local municipalities, FPCs, and police departments to mandate and thoroughly go through. And shout out to State Representative David Bowen. This was one of his legislative agendas. And he helped push this to make sure that the governor was paying attention. But I think, timing is everything, y'all.
Yeah.
And I think when we have momentum on our side, this is when we're able to get things in front of.
Let's get that ban on them chokeholds.
I was just gonna say,
let's redirect to even some things locally.
Yeah. So everything that you said is perfect. That is the focus that TPR is kind of going in at this point. We've been out in the streets trying to advocate for the community to call into the FPC and come to those meetings and leave public comment and let them know that we feel like the chokeholds need to be banned with no exception.
2 days after that verdict, though, right? Did they just kill somebody else after the Derek Chauvin?
Derek Chauvin. Yeah. No, yesterday. So we definitely got to touch on that.
Yeah, but.
Didn't we march for Dante Wright?
We marched for Dante Wright. Yeah, in Minneapolis. But what I'm talking about is the FPC is going to be meeting on May 6th.
Yes.
Yep.
And they are taking a vote on whether or not they should be banning the police from using. How many
times have they been
all chokeholds? It's been quite some time. So it's been at least like 3 or 4 meetings that they had where they just didn't take a vote. And I'm gonna just keep it all the way 100. The police union is holding our city hostage.
Organized police.
They are holding our city hostage. Every time that the FPC is trying to make substantial changes, they bring in their little scrubby little lawyer to be like, oh, you cannot do this. We're going to sue you. I want to tell the city, damn being sued. Okay. Because the money that y'all are paying in these lawsuits to go to court with these people is a lot less than the money that y'all are going to have to pay out to these families.
That's right.
And we are the people that's responsible for paying that money. So y'all might as well bite the bullet, make them changes, and do what y'all need to do, and stop playing the games with our money, because it is our money.
Come on.
And y'all trying to come up with different ways how to fund the police department. Why don't y'all fund the people?
That's right. Totally.
And we ain't
That's
talking about
what
no
we
stimulus check either.
And we ain't talking about
We're
no.
not talking
Y'all
about
can
a stimulus
stimulate
check.
me some more if y'all want to, but we need more than that check. I'm being real. For real.
I think everybody wants to have the stimulation going on.
We need that, but we
Totally
also
agree on
need
that.
we need everybody to tune in on the FPC website. There is a Legistar link that you can go on to, and you can get into the FPC meeting. It is going to be over Zoom, or not necessarily Zoom, but it is over online.
Teams, Microsoft Teams.
Microsoft Teams.
Go to meeting.
You can go on there. Please, 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 everyone, leave a comment. It is so important. The FPC has requested that the community show up and speak their mind. Last meeting, they only had 3 comments. We protested outside. Amanda Avalos, shout out to her.
Mhm.
She is on the FPC and she's amazing.
That's right.
I love her. I love your wife too, Amanda, just to let you know.
She's dope
But
too.
Nanice,
Nanice is
I
dope.
love y'all. But anyway, so Amanda Avalos shouted out to people. She let us know, we hear y'all, we understand y'all, but we need y'all here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really
May
what
6th.
So we can
May
let's
6th.
drop the date in the comments. Make sure we drop the link in there so people can be connected to it.
Yes.
So I think the other way they can go directly to the fpc.gov website and find it. They
Or
can also
go
come
on
to
the
People's
Go
Revolution
to People
page.
Resolution page. The Fire and Police Commission is also on the city website, city.milwaukee.gov. Camilla's talking about milwaukee.legistar.gov. That's also where another link is for public comments. But please, y'all, please,
Yes.
please, because that's something that also, as a representative on the community, there's so many Community Collaborative Commission. God, so many dang acronyms. But that's one thing that we have been doing in our fight for police reform is we made a stance against chokeholds.
That's right.
Like this is not even an exception. There's no exception for this. There's no situation where we find that a chokehold would be useful or necessary. And that's something that we're tasked to do in response to the Collins lawsuit, right? The ACLU lawsuit. Right. But there's no reason for, especially if it's something you don't train on.
Right.
Exactly.
Like that's what makes it worse, right?
Exactly.
The fact that you don't want to ban
something that
on
y'all
something
not trained
you don't
to
even
do.
find important to train on.
Exactly.
Like that's what makes it even more ridiculous and
There's
disrespectful.
no guideline for safety that says you are supposed to choke the life out of someone.
Exactly. I mean, chokeholds have been banned across the country. Hello, is that not what happened after Eric Gardner was killed?
That's right.
So
why is this not a conversation after Joel Acevedo being killed?
Exactly.
In a chokehold by a police officer.
By a police officer.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence as well when we're talking about policy that needs to be passed and making this big push, wanting to make sure that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is passed. So
TPR lit dropping for that too, y'all. Be looking out. Y'all might have papers on y'all door.
By day, I work for Senator Tammy Baldwin, so this is something that I am near and dear heart to and pushing internally. She's very supportive of it, continuing to push it, and will vote yes for it when it comes time for it. But we have to push the Senate to put it up for a vote. But also we need to get collective support by it. So meaning we don't need Democrats voting. We need Republicans voting for it as well.
That's right.
Who the senators, Tiffany?
So for Wisconsin, we have the lovely Senator Tammy Baldwin, and not being biased at all. But and then we also have Senator Ron Johnson, and
he can want to.
I get it.
And that's where the encouraging is going to have to come from, and direct contacting him and really persuading and getting him to see that this bill and any other legislation that's geared towards reforming police is definitely needed. And again, we have the momentum of the people. We have public opinion on our side. And so I would just encourage any of you all, everybody who's listening or will listen to this, everybody in this room, to make sure that y'all are helping me out here till we can get this passed. So that's my last shameless plug, but I definitely had to do that.
I think that's why it's so important in terms of studying. Shout out to Tammy Baldwin for sure. I think that's why it's so important in terms of the studying of historical movements, right? Because even Frederick Douglass said that power concedes nothing without a demand, right? But a demand means nothing without people.
That's right.
So if you have people that are bringing about that demand, that's what builds that people power.
Exactly.
So if we're galvanizing our numbers, you know what I'm saying, where
Mhm.
people are coming out with that universal language that's bringing about that reform, I don't care how much money people are putting in any type of political campaign.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat the number of people that are not only speaking out loud about an issue, but then they're hitting the ballot box
They
too.
hit
Right.
it.
So it doesn't matter about that. You gotta have. It's so important that people focus more on building people power.
Mhm. So I mean, unfortunately, we had the verdict came out yesterday. Here we were all together at that point in time, and we were marching. I believe. So shout out to everybody who was marching. Came out yesterday on 27th and Center and lit it up. But unfortunately, we came across another situation in Columbus, Ohio. And Jamal, you made I always follow everything Jamal say. Because he, as the old folks will say, he is smart beyond his years. He has been here before. And so I just appreciate, yes.
I like the word season.
Season. I appreciate that this brother.
Yeah.
But he made a post about the young 15-year-old lady. Am I correct in her age?
15.
15.
Yep.
15. Micaiah
Bryant.
And so just share what you said, so we can all just kind of just respect that, but just tune in and have a conversation about that.
So, just a little background for those who don't know the situation of Micaiah Bryant. She was unfortunately killed by a police officer in Columbus, Ohio. And the real background of it is that she was actually defending herself from people who were trying to jump her.
Mm-hmm.
So the report is she called the police, right? So the first thing that I said in this post was, regardless of how we are having a conversation about how the manner in which somebody defends themselves, people have protective factors, right? And the way in which they protect themselves, we have to acknowledge that. You know what I mean? Like if I feel that my life is on the line, right? Police use it all the time. How come people who are being attacked?
I say that all the time.
How come people who are being attacked on a regular basis can't use that same language?
We fear for our lives.
We fear for our lives every day. Why can't we protect ourselves?
Every day.
Right. So then the second part was we have to understand that language matters. We said that earlier. Many of the captions within a lot of the news reports are saying she was the aggressor. Like police killed girl who was attacking others, when in turn she was really defending herself.
Yeah.
And she was trying to, when you defending yourself, you're going after the people who are trying to attack you. So that changes the entire language or the whole context when you say somebody's the aggressor versus the one that is trying to defend
that's because she was black.
But that's because she was black.
Because
that wouldn't have happened if that was a young white girl. We've seen situations like that. The third one is what was really disheartening is to see people who look like us who were defending her being shot. Yeah. That's what was most disheartening, right? Of saying, when you bring a knife and you attack, you're going to get shot. Really? Let me ask a question. How come there are people who identify as white, who are white people, white men particularly, who just killed 9 people at a church? We can walk them out.
Yeah. Kyle Rittenhouse.
We can walk them out. Kyle Rittenhouse
walked himself home.
Kyle Rittenhouse walked himself home
Exactly.
after killing 2 people and shooting 3. Right? How is it? Or how come we've seen videos of white men charging at police officers with knives and they live to tell about it? There's just a de-escalation and there's an arrest.
Yeah.
Right. So how is it that so then there's that conversation about subjectivity. I know how to practice restraint. It's just, do I feel like restraining myself on your black ass?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Come on.
Right. And then the last part is, if she was focused on her attacker, right? I'm defending myself. That could have been an easy tackle in terms of that officer to control that situation. It could have been a taser situation. The girl is 15. This is a child.
Yeah.
So you could have easily de-escalated. Lethal force is your last option.
Yeah.
That's your last option. There's a difference between non-lethal and lethal.
Yeah.
Tackling to constrain or taser is deemed non-lethal. When you start talking about your weapon, your sidearm, Now that's lethal.
Yeah.
He went immediately to the gun.
12
Yeah.
seconds
And to be
after
12
he got
seconds
out the
after he
car.
got out the car.
Yeah.
Police are not trained to shoot someone to disarm them. Let's be clear.
That's clear.
Police training is to shoot to kill.
Shoot to kill.
Mhm.
So when you think about that, it's like this girl's doing this and I'm going to kill her. That's what people need to get through their heads.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
On average, police officers receive 100 hours of training in weapons and tactics and 8 hours of training in de-escalation. Now we got a problem.
That's a damn
big
shame.
Wait. Say that number.
Say
We have-
that again.
We got a problem. They receive 100 hours on average of training in weapons and combat tactics. And they receive just 8 hours of training in conflict resolution and de-escalation.
That is
Their
bullshit.
job
We gotta
should be, 90% of the job.
De-escalation.
It's supposed to be conflict
It's
resolution,
supposed-
de-escalation.
Supposed to be-
Yes.
and communication.
And communication is
But
within
no,
that.
it's not because
Yeah.
they
But it's
slave catchers.
And that's what we need to go after. We need to attack these training methods.
Exactly. No, we need to abolish them. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm on team abolish now.
I mean, we not
Get
here to-
rid of
we
the
not here to
whole
judge
system.
nothing.
I mean, hey,
We need to
opinions
throw-
notwithstanding,
That's
the
right.
whole conversation just needs to be a systemic overhaul.
Exactly.
Definitely.
It needs
Exactly.
to
Right.
change. It
That,
can't-
so that's in all areas.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? That
That's
it's not
right.
just policing,
Right.
right? It's a systemic overhaul in healthcare and education,
Mhm.
in employment and workforce development, entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
All of that requires a systemic overhaul.
Mhm.
There was how many officers on the
3.
call? as
Three.
well?
There were
3.
two
There
other
were three.
officers there before that one showed up.
So again, imagine if he had tackled the young lady, then the other 2 officers come in and they constrain the other lady. People are still
They
alive.
constrained George Floyd.
Yeah.
Your job as an officer is to protect the health and sanctity of all parties,
Mhm.
including the violent ones.
Right.
Mhm.
So if that means, and they show you that when they're still able to de-escalate a situation with a violent white offender.
Yeah.
So clearly they know that in that space.
Right.
So how come that doesn't apply when it's in our communities?
Yeah.
And then to see people who look like us say, well, the officer was right for doing what he did. She had a gun or she had a knife. She should have been killed.
There's
So
no
now you're
shoulda.
providing justification for
There's no
this.
shoulda.
All skin folk ain't kin folk.
Oh.
Tell you that.
Yeah.
I think people are so conditioned though to
Yeah.
automatically agree with what the police do.
They are.
Like we don't
They
even
are.
question it. People are like, he was well within his right to shoot her. Okay, so that make it right. That make it okay though. Like
I think to that point, people are conditioned to want to comply, and because they think if you don't comply, the worst is gonna happen. But I'm like,
The
but their
worst
worst
has
is
happened.
We've
happening
already
when you
been through
do
the worst.
comply.
The worst has
Especially
So
happened.
it's
now.
like now there's no reason. And I feel like a lot of times they're doing it on purpose now because they know that they're getting away with it. And even if it is being recorded, like it's just how
This
do we uncondition
is why I
ourselves
say-
to think that way?
reformation does not work.
Yeah.
This is why we need a whole new system because there are plenty of videos of police
Yeah.
harming, murdering black and brown people, and it don't make a damn difference whether we see it on video or not. George Floyd made a difference because it was so blatant.
Yeah.
But look at all the other people we saw abused by police.
Right.
Sandra Bland.
Right.
Have y'all seen the full video of what happened to
Yeah.
her?
Yeah.
And then
And
they
that
put her,
traffic stop?
her picture of her being deceased up as her
Yeah.
And there's a
mugshot.
documentary
Yeah,
that
they
goes
changed the
deep
eyes.
into
What that
that.
documentary does.
If
go into that
you
too.
look at the way that police officer handled that situation
Yeah.
on video,
Yeah.
this is why I say whether they got a body camera or not, it's the system that needs to be changed
Yeah.
because they can keep giving us these little pockets of stuff to protect, but 9 times out of 10 it's going to be there to protect the police.
Right.
But the problem is you have a lot of people that even look like us that have bought into the system.
Exactly.
That's the issue because how many people, and I think we all saw that when Sandra Bland, when that situation happened,
She should have shut
she should have, if my daughter was cussing
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
I would have been mad too. You don't
Yeah.
talk to people like
People would
that.
have said that.
So
People
that
were
means that
saying
she had to die because she was cussing at the officers.
She
No.
wasn't talking to people. She was talking to an officer of the peace. And their responsibility is to keep the peace, correct?
But his
But they don't
tactics
operate
was
like
not
that.
operating in peace.
Not at all.
Exactly.
Right. So
It was a great.
first
Hold
off,
them
why
to
do I
the
have to
standard.
why do I have to put my cigarette out in my car? That's
Right.
one. Two, I didn't realize that just because I have a broken tail light that it's going to require me to step out of the car because now you have probable cause versus me just going to a damn auto shop and getting my tail light fixed.
Exactly.
So again, it's all about the magnitude and the ways in which Black folks have been policed.
Right.
That's got to be the conversation.
Right.
But then the other aspect is, opinions on abolishment notwithstanding, or the ways in which it goes, we have to understand that there's going to be a lot of people who just do not rock with abolishing. And it is what it is. People have their own perspectives.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so then what is the other answer to that?
Defund.
Now we got to start talking.
They
now
don't
we're talking
like
about
that either, Tiffany.
But see, I think that's what goes along with the conversation that you all were saying earlier when we were talking about the education piece.
Yeah.
Because if people are understanding, if we are putting more, defund essentially is just saying reallocation of funds.
Refund.
Yep.
That's
We like
all
to
it's
use it.
saying. So if people
Refund.
are then, if I have to say reimagining public safety, fine,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still the same damn
Same
process.
thing.
It is.
So I'm taking money. People cannot be satisfied with 50% of the city budget going to police.
Come on.
We are not.
You can't be happy with that while 2% goes to the health department.
Common Council, y'all need to fix that.
That can't be acceptable, right?
Us as a whole need to stand up against that. This is where we don't show up at.
Yeah.
In the ballot box where we're needed to speak out against the wrongdoing and injustice. We don't. Especially the things that have to do with legislative change. We don't speak up against it. Nobody wants to read into politics. But it's what runs our country. It's most definitely what's, making our neighborhoods, be as devalued as they are. That process right there is what we have to tune into and make sure we say as much as we can.
That's
Yeah.
right, bro.
And we know who we voting for.
That's right. That's
Because we got a lot of people out here who were given platforms, elected in the seats, and forgot they people. And we need to break that status quo, especially in the political realm. I'm a person, I hate politicians, but I will run for whatever I can if it means that my voice and the voice of my people is going to be heard.
Yeah.
Because right now the way it's going it feels like they're not listening to us a lot of times.
Yeah.
It feels
we're
like
not
they
making
have their own agenda.
Yeah.
And I think that we as a community especially need to let it be known. We put you there, we can take you out of there.
That's what I'm saying. We're not making them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a legislator that came up to me one time and said that they would love to see more of a participation from the community because half of the time they're just trying to figure out what type of legislation to create
Mm-hmm.
because there really isn't a voice of the community.
Mhm.
My response to her was, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that because I think the issues.
Yeah.
So do I necessarily, even though I do think there has to be a greater civic participation.
That's
I'm
People
with
have
that.
to back you up.
That's
They
true.
People have to
True.
back you up. I agree
Yeah.
with that. But I think you also know what are some of the perils that are happening and social ills happening in communities as well,
That's right.
where I shouldn't always have to tell you what to do.
That's
You'll
right.
see what's
You
happening
can't
here.
be
Right.
that in touch when your job is to serve the people.
That's right.
Right. So if you know that Milwaukee is called Selma of the North and Wisconsin is recognized as Mississippi because of the level of racism that exists within the state and in this city alone, there's something you should be able to do with that. And that's historical. There's a whole book called Selma of the North
Mhm.
talking about the history of civil rights insurgency here.
Mhm.
So if you know that has always been a historical practice and it's still happening in 2021, I think you have an idea of what platform you need to be pushing in terms of legislation.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of time the problem was our people. We don't even know what's going on with legislating. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't know at all, and
Right.
people fear what they don't understand.
That's right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And I believe if you teach the people and they get knowledge on it, knowledge is power. We all agree.
Yeah.
And I believe whoever has the power in turn can make rules.
That's right.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? So I feel like we just got to get back in there and start really showing our people what it is. It's easy to get on a platform and say, well, we need to do this. We need to come out and get to the ballots. But
How do you
when
do
I get
it?
to the ballot, how do I get to the ballot?
How do I
Or
get
when
to
I
the
get
ballot?
there,
Mhm.
what am I doing at the ballot?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
who really is this person that you're telling me I should be voting for?
Yes.
We
Right.
need to really familiarize the people with who are the people going to represent us. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's why your civic engagement starts well before the next election.
Yeah.
Right. We should be starting now. Okay. We just elected a president. Now we should be starting civic engagement in terms of the ways in which we are not, analyzing what President Biden is doing. But we do the same thing on the city level and a state level,
Mhm.
right? How are we analyzing what Common Council is doing? How are we analyzing what the county board is doing? The state reps, the state house, the state senate, all of those practices need to be put into place well before the next elections come out. And I got to shout out Micaiah Tucker with African American Roundtable, her and Devin Anderson, because they're about to lead that civic engagement work coming up within the next month or so, right? But another thing that needs to happen is that there has to be efforts to build capacity, because it just can't be Marquesa and them. Just can't be the roundtable.
Right.
That's got to be an encompassing work where groups who focus on civic engagement are working in partnership with the roundtable to expand capacity around education. But then also you're bringing in TPR, right, to have a conversation. How do we not only lead the efforts on ground in terms of protesting, but what if there are people in TPR who need to learn more about civics as well? How can we help them?
Well, I think we have an answer.
Great points. Thank you so much. You're fabulous organizer here. Just to give you drop a little line for ya. I'm sorry, guys. No, but I'm so happy you brought that up as well. TPR, myself, and our education committee, we are currently organizing a civics lesson for the community. We had our first one. It was facilitated with Malele Cogs. So we started out on the
shout out to Malele.
Shout out to Malele too. We really appreciate it and loved having her on. It was very informational. Our next one will be facilitated with Saquana, or they are our guests, Saquana Taylor, and Saquana and Ryan Clancy will be facilitating our next one on the county level. Okay. So he said that's a force.
No, I mean like in terms of power, like both of them and
are super powerful.
They're powerful.
Yes, we are trying to get more powerful on our county level because we need to defund the sheriffs as well, because they don't be out here doing nothing, y'all.
So definitely.
So that just hearing that's May what 17th. I mean in terms of like building those platforms where there's more space for civic engagement. Like that's necessary. And in my opinion, I think also this is a move in where you're holding your churches responsible as well. Right? Because of the fact that they still, regardless of where you are in 21st century and the way that it's looking in terms of Christian ideology, they still have a great presence in community.
You hear that, churches?
So
rise up.
There's got to be a push internally in terms of civic engagement from a faith-based.
Pray for political change.
You have to,
and not only just pray for it, get the people in church involved in it.
Oh my goodness!
Faith without works is dead.
Oh, amen.
Like people forget, like the church was a prominent figure in the civil rights movement.
Yes, it was.
Right?
It was a meeting place.
It was the meeting place, right? Martin Luther King was a Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Reverend Doctor, right? You had King, you had Abernathy, you had other representatives from the church. The church was prominent in that. It fell off. So that's an opportunity again to put, to bring that onus to churches and saying, you also need to be responsible in terms of civic engagement, because that goes along the line of being able to serve the people, which is the ideology you believe.
That's right.
That's right. Before we get out of here today, I want to be able to, give the people a chance to follow you guys and keep in touch and, just be more empowered to help. What are ways that they can follow you, like social media sites?
Yeah, my Facebook is Jamal E. Smith. I can even give people, my cell, my email, any way that people, that I can help, please reach out to me. Like I'm not one that's really guarded about my information, because like I said earlier, this is purposeful work for me. So anybody that is really serious of this work, please let me know how I can be a part of that. So my Facebook is Jamal E. Smith. My phone is 414-704-5546. And my email is jasmith@milwaukee.gov. Anytime, and just anybody who wants to, if I can be of assistance again in any manner, please reach out to me.
Awesome.
And I am not quite as transparent with my personal information. I won't be giving y'all my phone number or my email, but you can check me out on Facebook. The current page I am using that is not in Facebook jail is Cami Simone. That is Kami
They put
space.
regular people in jail before they put
Yes.
police officers in jail. Y'all.
Yes, y'all.
How about that?
On Facebook. Anyway, KAMI. And that's the first name. And the second one is SIMMONE. Cami Simone is my Facebook page that is not currently in Facebook jail. If you can't reach that one, it is probably in jail by now. And so you can check me out on Camila Ahmed as well. I have 3 of those Camila Ahmed pages. If you cannot reach me on one of those, I might be in real jail. So be worried. But Camila Ahmed, KAMILA, last name is AHMED. And I also want to say follow the People's Revolution MKE online. The People's Revolution has the People's Revolution Milwaukee. That is our public Facebook page. We also have a private Facebook page. Members only. You got to be kind of fancy to get up in there. But if y'all would like to join the People's Revolution private page, please take a moment and answer the questions. You will not get in if you do not answer the questions when you try to get in, just to let y'all know. So please answer the questions. We want to hear from y'all. We love y'all. Also, shout out Tyrone Randall. Tyrone Randall created this sweater I have on. It's Akasha from Queen of the Dam. Tyrone is a phenomenal artist. He is selling these sweaters with his original artwork on there. I'm going to stand up real fast so y'all can see it.
Plug
See,
for
plug
sure.
in there real quick.
I knew that looked familiar.
Yeah, shout out Tyrone.
Shout out Tyrone.
Shout
That's
out
what's up.
Tyrone.
Yeah.
So before we do,
Thank you.
Before we do close, tomorrow is the funeral for Dante Wright. Want to make sure that everybody is just lifting up the Wright family. Today was the wake, but just make sure you're lifting up that family and everybody there in Minneapolis, Brooklyn Center. They're going through a lot these past couple of weeks. So just want to make sure that we are uplifting, encouraging people and to stand in tune. But any other announcements before?
I got one. So we have a basketball virtual event coming up. My wife, Sarah Smith, Saquana Taylor, Jakari, Kicks for Kids, and Mama Maria Hamilton. It's called Refund the Community MKE. It's a virtual event. Of course, it's going to be virtual because of the pandemic, but you know, our kids need to be active and stay active as well. So Friday, April 23rd at 6:30. That's one of the virtual events. Saturday, April 24th at 12 p.m. noon. And then we have these are basically just going to be little dribbling practices, the meet and greet. And then, of course, we have Sunday, April 25th at 2 p.m. They'll have the meet and greet for life skills and other activities. You know, just shout out Refund the Community MKE. It's presented by Mike Taylor, of course.
Shout out
y'all know
Mike
who
Taylor.
Mike is. And
Milwaukee's on Mike Taylor.
you know, reach out, y'all. I'm gonna post more of the flyer into the Revolution Ready page. So just be on the lookout for that. Try to get your kids involved. It's gonna be a fun time.
Well, thanks y'all for tuning in to another episode of Revolution Ready.
Yeah.
Give a shout out to Jamal and Camila for just lighting up the
Most
podcast.
definitely. Thanks for
this
coming
evening.
through. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
y'all.
you.
Love y'all. Much respect to the work that y'all
Black
doing.
power.
And
Y'all
if you
stay encouraged
haven't,
as well.
if you haven't got the merch, make sure you get the merch. You know what I'm saying? We got the t-shirts and the hoodie. You know, and if you like what you're seeing here on Revolution Ready today, you can tune in with us.
And make sure y'all like and share. And
Like,
check us out next week, same time, 5 p.m. And yeah, make sure you
Lights.
remember. Camera.
Camera.
Black
Action.
Shin.
See y'all next week.